So I'm about to tell you about one of the greatest, meanest, most vicious, bottomless buckets of concentrated ass whoop ever conceived on the comic book page. It's Doomsday. I'm Walt, the most gangster nerd on YouTube, and this is Know Your Villains.
First created in a lab by an alien scientist named Bertrand some 250,000 years ago, Doomsday was genetically engineered and hyper-evolved in order to become the perfect living being. Bertrand would release an infant Doomsday onto the surface of a prehistoric planet Krypton, where the intense and harsh environment would quickly kill him. His remains would be collected and cloned, creating a stronger life form that could not be killed the same way twice, and in time would adapt to no longer need food or air, eventually evolving to survive the conditions and other predators. And because each death suffered was recorded into his genetics, Doomsday would come to hate all life and would exterminate every living thing on the planet, even killing Bertrand himself and escaping Krypton via supply ship that would unfortunately take him on a killing spree across several planets. Sometime later, Doomsday would arrive on Byland 5, where he would cross paths with a younger Darkseid. Doomsday would kill Darkseid's friend and ally, Master Mayhem, instilling fear into the new god for the first time in his life. Darkseid would want no part of the creature and would flee, as Doomsday's rampage would leave the planet uninhabitable. Doomsday would leave Byland 5 on an escaping shuttle and crash land on Kundia. While laying waste to that planet, he would battle the Kundian warrior Kobold, killing him, but being hurled through space. After some time, he would cross paths with Zron Pell, the Green Lantern, and would pummel him to death. Doomsday would take his Green Lantern ring off his body, and then sense the Guardians of the Universe and start heading towards Oa. The Guardians would send thousands of Green Lantern Corps members to intercept this onslaught that was Doomsday, and they would all be destroyed, standing no chance against the creature. Doomsday would eventually arrive on Oa, and battle against a single Guardian who was smart enough to realize the creature was adaptive to his powers. The Guardian would end up sacrificing himself, resulting in a tear in space-time, through which Doomsday would fall. But it wouldn't be long before Doomsday would land upon Calaton, and begin laying waste to the entire planet. After some time, the royal family of Calaton would combine their energies into a singular being known as the Radiant. The Radiant would battle Doomsday before unleashing a blast that would seemingly kill the creature. The natives of Calaton would then wrap his body and shackle it, then encase it in a metal coffin and fire it into space. Doomsday's body would in time make it to Earth, crash landing and ending up buried for thousands of years. Over the course of that time, he would eventually work one arm free and beat his way out of his metal vault. Upon freeing himself, he would begin laying waste to his surroundings. This would draw the attention of the Justice League, and with one hand tied behind his back, he would wreck the entire team, leading Booster Gold to give the creature his name, Doomsday. This would in turn draw the attention of Superman, who would engage Doomsday, and the two would fight non-stop, as Doomsday would attack continuously and endlessly, without fear. The struggle would end with the two beating each other to death. Subsequently, Cyborg Superman would show up and take Doomsday's body, strap it to an asteroid, and launch it into space. But unfortunately, Doomsday had revived himself. A while later, Doomsday would find himself on Apokolips, and doing what Doomsday does, he began laying waste to the planet. The ruler of Apokolips, Darkseid, who had not forgotten the monster from their previous encounter, would engage Doomsday and be defeated decisively. Darkseid could do nothing with Doomsday, even hitting the creature with his full power to mega beams, and Doomsday just simply shrugged it off and kept coming. This would lead to Darkseid's servants, Desaad, opening a boom tube, sending Doomsday back to Calaton. Superman would pursue Doomsday and be greeted with a beatdown. Superman, being unable to contend with Doomsday, would use a time travel device to strand Doomsday at the end of time. And then came Brainiac. Brainiac would have Doomsday retrieved from the end of time, wanting to merge his mind with Doomsday's strength. However, Doomsday's will was entirely too strong for Brainiac to overwhelm him at first. However, Brainiac was able to gain control. Superman would force Brainiac out with a psi blocker before tricking Doomsday into following him to the moon. Superman would lure Doomsday into a group of teleportation chambers that would constantly teleport the beast between them, thus capturing and holding Doomsday. Until the Suicide Squad. Well, Manchester Black's Suicide Squad. They would release Doomsday from his imprisonment, and in usual Doomsday fashion, he annihilated the entire team. This was actually part of a plan to use Doomsday to battle Imperiex. Doomsday would in fact go on to fight Imperiex, but Imperiex would prove to be way too much, blasting Doomsday and leaving him as nothing more than a glowing skeleton. But then Lex Luthor would retrieve Doomsday and restore him, then hand him over to Darkseid as payment for a debt. Darkseid would attempt to clone the beast, creating an army of Doomsdays. However, he was unable to perfect the process. By now, however, Doomsday had evolved and developed sentience. Superman would travel to Apokolips in order to rescue Supergirl, and in response, Doomsday was let loose. However, he simply disappeared. Using his new intelligence, he would escape Krypton and head back to Earth, where he would interfere in the battle between Superman and Gog, saving Superman from death. However, Gog would still capture Superman and torture him for 2 centuries. Before Superman actually convinced him of the error of his ways, Gog would send then Doomsday back in time, costing him his newfound intelligence. Then came Infinite Crisis, in which Dr. Psycho would free Doomsday using his mind control and would use Doomsday in order to attack Metropolis. This would lead to a team-up of Earth 2 Superman and the main continuity Superman, who would take Doomsday out with ease. During New Krypton, Doomsday would return to Earth, but would end up in a confrontation against Superman, Supergirl, and the Kandorians on the moon, ending with his skull getting crushed. Not long after this, the events of Flashpoint would happen, and that seen the launch of the New 52. Doomsday would show up for the first time in the past, battling Zod, who would actually manage to defeat Doomsday and lock him away in the Phantom Zone. Doomsday mysteriously appears on Earth and fights Wonder Woman, managing to injure her before disappearing. As it turns out, the Phantom Zone is failing, allowing Doomsday to temporarily escape. Months later, Doomsday would appear on Earth again in Superman Doomed, now deadlier than ever, causing the death of everyone nearby and even buildings to crumble. Superman, having no other choice, would cut Doomsday in half, killing him, and as Doomsday disintegrated, Superman would inhale his ashes to ensure the beast could not come back. However, this would lead to Superman developing the Doomsday infection, but he would later manage to rid himself of it. Most recently, after the death of the New 52 Superman, the pre-Flashpoint Superman and Lex Luthor would fight Doomsday together, after he is set free by an unknown group. Superman manages to lure Doomsday back to the Fortress of Solitude and send him to the Phantom Zone, when at the last second, he is captured by Mr. Oz for purposes unknown.
And if you didn't know before, you sure do now. This was Know Your Villains. I'm Walt, the most gangster nerd on YouTube, and I'll be seeing you soon enough.